If you could peel back the layers of our world and step into the deserts of Arabia 1400 years ago, you might be surprised by how quiet everything feels at first. No vast empires stretching across continents, no towering cities with marble temples, just wind, sand, scattered tribes, and a land that most of the world hardly paid attention to. Yet somewhere in that silence, a spark was already forming. A spark that would grow so bright, it would reshape continents, rewrite cultures, and ignite one of the greatest intellectual and spiritual movements in human history. And the part that always fascinates me is this: no one living in those early years had the slightest idea of the storm that was coming. That's where our story begins, not with empires, not with armies, but with a man. A man who walked the streets of Mecca quietly, thoughtfully, almost invisibly.
Muhammad ibn Abdullah.
Before prophethood, he wasn't a ruler, not a general, not a scholar. Just a man searching for truth in a world full of divisions, tribal rivalries, idols, and injustices. And on one night in a cave on Mount Hira, everything changed. The message he received didn't just challenge the way people worshipped, it challenged the very structure of society, demanding equality, justice, community, compassion, and something even deeper, unity. Imagine hearing a message that told you the poor and the rich were equal before God. That no tribe was superior to another. That the world wasn't random or cruel, but guided. No wonder the early followers felt like they had stumbled into a new world. And no wonder the elites of Mecca felt threatened. It wasn't just religion at stake, it was power. But despite persecution and the threat of death, the movement grew. Step by step, exile by exile, battle by battle, something extraordinary was unfolding. And when Muhammad and the early Muslims finally made their journey to Medina, the Hijra, it marked not just a migration but the birth of a new community. A community built on faith, law, charity, and shared purpose. A society unlike anything Arabia had ever seen. And before we go deeper, hey, if you love exploring the hidden stories and forgotten worlds of our past, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the journeys ahead. History is full of secrets waiting to be uncovered, and I'd love for you to explore them with me. Now, the passing of the Prophet in 632 could have shattered everything. Movements often collapse when the founder is gone. But what happened instead is one of the most astonishing chapters of human history. Four leaders stepped forward: Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, and Ali, later known as the Rashidun caliphs. These weren't kings from palaces. They were companions of Muhammad, men who knew the weight of leadership but also the fragility of the moment. Under them, the Islamic world didn't just survive. It exploded across the map with a speed and unity that even modern historians still struggle to fully explain. Within decades, mighty empires like Byzantium and Persia felt the shock of this new force. Damascus, Jerusalem, Ctesiphon, Egypt, lands that had been ruled by ancient powers suddenly shifted into new hands. But it wasn't just conquest. What made this period unique was how the new rulers governed compared to the systems that came before. Taxes were adjusted, local religions protected, scholars invited, communities allowed to keep their customs. Many people found the new rule lighter, fairer, and more stable than what they had before. But no era lasts forever. The unity of the Rashidun period eventually fractured under the weight of politics, tribal rivalries, and the painful question of who should lead the Muslims. And from those early conflicts came a wound that never fully healed: the Sunni-Shia divide. A divide based not on theology at first, but on loyalty, leadership, and tragedy. A divide that would echo across centuries. The Umayyads rose in this storm. They built an empire that stretched from Spain to India, making Damascus one of the most important cities in the world. They standardized currency, administration, infrastructure, turning a young, expanding community into a structured global state. But critics said they became too worldly, too royal, too distant from the original simplicity of Islam. Their power grew, But so did the resentment. Then came the Abbasids, sweeping the Umayyads aside and shifting the center of the Muslim world to Baghdad. And Baghdad, this is where the story takes a beautiful turn. Imagine a city bursting with scholars, translators, poets, astronomers, philosophers, surgeons, architects, all working under the protection of caliphs who believed that knowledge was a divine gift. The House of Wisdom became the beating heart of an intellectual revolution. Greek texts, Persian science, Indian mathematics, all gathered, translated, expanded. Algebra was refined. Medicine advanced. Astronomy flourished. Libraries grew into universes of ideas. This was the Islamic Golden Age, a time when the light of learning burned brighter than anywhere else on earth. And honestly, every time I think of it, I wish more people today knew just how many of the things we take for granted — hospitals, scientific methods, optics, engineering, philosophy — were shaped in those centuries. If you're still with me, thank you. And hey, if you're enjoying this journey through time, consider subscribing. There are so many incredible stories like this waiting for you. Yet even golden ages are fragile. Power shifted, governors grew ambitious. New groups rose in the east: Persians, Turks, Central Asian dynasties. The Seljuks became protectors of the Abbasids. New sultans ruled in the name of the caliph, while the caliph's role slowly became symbolic, spiritual, ceremonial. And as the balance of power changed, storms began to gather on the horizon. Christian armies from Europe launched the Crusades, carving out kingdoms in the Middle East. But the Islamic world responded with figures like Nur ad-Din and the legendary Salah ad-Din Saladin, who retook Jerusalem with a blend of strategy, mercy, and leadership that even his enemies respected. Yet while crusaders came and went, something far more terrifying was approaching from the east. The Mongols. Nothing in the Islamic world, or any world, was prepared for them. They swept through Central Asia, Persia, and eventually reached Baghdad itself. When the city fell in 1258, the libraries that once held the knowledge of the world were thrown into the Tigris. The river turned black with ink. The great Abbasid power, centuries old, ended in days. But history rarely ends in one place. Even as the Mongols shattered old structures, new powers rose from the pieces. Some Mongol rulers embraced Islam, rebuilding cities they once destroyed. Turkic dynasties formed new empires. And on the ruins of the old world, three extraordinary states began to rise. Three powers that would dominate early modern history: the Ottomans in Anatolia, the Safavids in Persia, and the Mughals in India. These were the gunpowder empires, masters of canon, architecture, culture, art, and administration. The Ottomans built an empire that lasted over 600 years, bridging Europe and Asia. The Safavids crafted a Persian identity that still shapes Iran today. The Mughals created wonders like the Taj Mahal and built one of the richest empires the world had ever seen. Each of them carried fragments of the ancient caliphate, reshaping the Islamic world into new forms: imperial, grand, influential. The old Arabian beginnings had become global, diverse, and powerful. And when you look back from start to finish, from one man meditating alone in a cave, to cities of scholars, to empires that ruled continents, you realize something incredible. This wasn't just a religious story. It wasn't just a political one either. It was a story of transformation, of cultures woven together, of knowledge preserved, expanded, and shared, of tragedy and triumph, rise and fall, unity and division, all carried across centuries by millions of lives and countless crossroads of history. Before we close, let me say this: if this journey moved you, if it sparked curiosity, if it made the past feel alive, make sure you subscribe so you can keep exploring these hidden worlds with me. There are so many more stories to uncover, more mysteries to open, more forgotten chapters waiting to be brought back to life. Because history is not a dusty record. It's a living river. And every time we look into it, we see ourselves a little more clearly. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next journey.